Oh, good. We get it. You add value through rare earth minerals. We can work with you on that. And you need a little bit of protection because you haven't built up your military as you guys should have. Also, this agreement has effectively put an end to Zelensky's notorious backroom mineral deals. Yeah, those were...
That's just...
Goodbye.
Is that a worm?
Let's go to then. Very nice. The left was saying this, and they'll move on to something else. Donald Trump is the worst negotiator of all time. And remember, he's going to abandon Ukraine and give it over to Russia. That's clearly what's happening.
Trump is not only not the best negotiator, he is maybe the worst negotiator.
The unfortunate thing here is that Donald Trump is negotiating basically on behalf of Russia.
But maybe it's not fair to judge Trump's negotiating skills based on the Ukraine war. He didn't start that war. We all know Ukraine did. By wearing that province. You knew what you were doing, Ukraine, when you sashayed your pretty little Donbass all around the Black Sea.
So his moves are either idiotic.
He looks like Mickey needs to cut his eye.
Clearly designed to abandon Ukraine in favor of Putin.
After saying to Russia, well, what if we divide it where you get everything? Putin just kept bombing. And Trump is now reduced from the world's greatest negotiator to, oh, come on.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds really bad.
It does.
Just give it all over to Russia. Do nothing. I mean, don't take into account the many, pledged 150 billion, depending on the numbers you use at this point. But that brings us to now. This way. This way. Son of a, I have to reverse it. I was right. I need to trust myself. Trust your gut, Stephen. Trust your gut. Trust your... Okay. So now, the United States, Ukraine, signed a landmark. It's signed now. It's done. The mineral deal.
Reported Ukraine and the U.S. on Wednesday signed an investment deal that will give the U.S. access to a key minerals deal after months of negotiations.
Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace,
this guy does need a hype man.
I'm glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund.
Get it!
This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term.
Are you like proactively anti-fun?
It's not fair. He's paralyzed from the neck down.
Would I have egg on my... Well, you know what? Charles Krauthammer was actually paralyzed and was far more entertaining than that man.
Yes, way more engaging. Listen, that guy's very smart, and I like hearing what he has to say, but just in very short snippets.
That's actually my comedy coach.
Yes.
Learned everything from him.
Gosh. I hope you didn't pay him.
So for those of you who aren't who haven't brushed up on this yet, all the references are available. Link in the description, as we do every single show. I hope everyone else starts following suit, especially in the age of misinformation. Let me sort of recap the deal. This basically creates a joint fund between the United States and Ukraine. Okay, that fund is going to invest in extraction of critical minerals, and by the way, also oil and gas, but critical minerals are pretty big. It's sort of a weak spot for us. For the first 10 years profit, those are supposed to be reinvested in Ukraine, and the United States will get first right of refusal, basically meaning first dibs as it relates to investments that are involved or support mineral, rare earth extraction. And I want to be really clear here. What's most important about this is this ties the United States, our interests, to the Ukraine, but it's not a blank check. This is effectively a way of beginning to draw those lines for Russia without simply having to draw those lines and say, don't do it, you better not. Russia knows that we have an interest in this. It creates an alliance. It solves the issue, but is mutually beneficial. Not all of them. You add the nuclear plant deal to it, and guess what? We'd be effectively done.
Yeah, and you end up doing a deal potentially if Russia still wants to do it with minerals over there, and you started to kind of help do something that most presidents don't do. Most of the presidents go, look at the size of my military, here are sanctions. Remember, you don't want the military to step into this sanctions, right? And the countries get around the sanctions or they deal with the sanctions. We obviously saw it with Iran, with Russia, with other countries throughout history. Donald Trump says, here's an economic incentive. And don't forget I have the military, which I use with precision most of the time, like taking out Soleimani, people like that. That's a different thing. He's using the economic incentives and power of the United States instead of just relying on the military.
Right.
That's why he's the no new wars president.
Right.
He's done a good job. It doesn't mean he'll always be.
Well, and Josh had a great point, but I want to first read from the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in a statement, something pretty important. He said, to be clear, no state or person who financed or supplied the Russian war machine will be allowed to benefit from the reconstruction of Ukraine.
Ooh. Now, does I assume that's talking about like China, North Korea, states like that. But does it include states in the European Union that have been purchasing oil from
point.
Russia? I know technically it's not, it's not all Russian-owned oil. Like the Kremlin doesn't own the oil. I get that, but you're still fueling their economy. You're still fueling the war machine in a way.
I think it's a very good point.
It would be considered that if you were doing it to the U.S.
Yep.
If you were buying U.S. Missiles or U.S. products and you were fighting a war against somebody else, they would go, hey, why are you fueling the U.S. military-industrial complex?
If nothing else, I would like them to clarify, and Donald Trump should use this as a leverage point, so that Europe has to answer for demanding we fund Ukraine while they spend far more money on Russian energy.
While simultaneously keeping us out of the deals.
Right.
Well, after Biden, trying to keep Donald Trump and his administration out of any peace talks between Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
Trying to prolong this war. I don't know, God knows for what reason.
And simultaneously, not making us their primary energy trading partner. Right?
And Donald Trump even warned them about this before. In his first term, he warned them about this. At the UN, we've played
They laughed at him.
this before. Exactly. They laughed at him. It's like, guys, you saw this coming. By the way, this is not a small thing. This is $15 trillion potentially worth of minerals in Ukraine. It also gives American companies first dibs. Right. So if the United States has that control, this is where it really materially benefits us. And not just sending money overseas, our companies can go over there and do this kind of work and we get preferential treatment. That's fantastic for us and great for Ukraine as well.
It's
Sucks
also
for Russia.
Here's the thing, too. It's also an approach that takes into account human nature.
Yeah.
Let me be clear about that. I just this is one thing where when Zelensky, we are not going to, you're going to do whatever Russia says unless you have the United States. Okay. And to be clear, this little tiny small nation, a place that most leftists couldn't point out on a map, Ukraine, guess what? You don't exist anymore. And the only way you get other nations to provide any type of protection is if you add something valuable. All right. Okay. What are you giving to the world that is worth protecting? With Ukraine, pretty much just rare earth minerals. That's it. So I'm like, okay, this is what you bring to the table. This is what you offer. That warrants some kind of protection, not just the demands, grandstanding, and a mock neck sweater saying, hey, we need to fund you, otherwise Russia's coming for us next. All right, you know what? Oh, good, we get it. You add value through rare earth minerals. We can work with you on that. And you need a little bit of protection because you haven't built up your military as you guys should have. Also, this agreement has effectively put an end to Zelensky's notorious backroom mineral deals. Yeah, those were...
That's just...
Goodbye.
Is that a worm?
No, that's the lady from the Watch and React video.
After her cats were done with her?
The Ukraine Foreign Affairs Committee even said, the more American economic interests in our country, the better the chances are for our survival. I hope that this deal will open the way for Ukraine to receive more military assistance from the United States.
No.
Exactly.
Sorry, no.
And this is something that I want, sure, this helps the United States steer Ukraine's actions, right? There are a lot of benefits here. I hope that we move on to this nuclear deal. That would be important. That would probably solve, I'd say, about 90% of what's going on here without having to have some kind of a declaration of war. But this is fundamentally different in an approach. Whether you like it or not, please comment if you see it. From Donald Trump, it's a business approach versus government. How is, for example, Barack Obama or Joe Biden, who hasn't seen the private sector basically since he was a teenager, how is he going to identify, all right, what is the mutually beneficial relationship here? What are the selfish interests of Ukraine? And is there a way that we can work within that benefits us? Think about this. Joe Biden, Barack Obama, their entire life has been writing checks where if they did it in the business world, every single one of them, take the Build Back Better, the giant stimulus infrastructure bill, could bankrupt the company. At no point have they had to take into account, hold on a second, we have finite resources, there's a give and take, what's the take?
Right.
They just write a blank check. It's the first time you have a president going, okay, let's start off from, we know what you want, we know what you need, All right, what do we bring to the table and what do we need? It is a true free enterprise mindset. And ironically, for a country that was based on free enterprise, we haven't seen it as a function of government, or at least a starting, in my lifetime. It's just been a check and a policy and a red line that isn't respected. And then you foot the bill. That's how you end up with this kind of debt. Let's contrast, just to be really clear, put a finer point on it, how Biden and Barack Obama got the Ukrainians to do what they wanted.
I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
They went put in someone in place who wasn't going to be looking into Burisma? Yes, right.
Someone who's solid, someone who can be paid off.
Yes, exactly.
To protect your son and your business dealings.
Which finding someone who is bribable in Ukraine, that is a tall order.
It's like finding the basketball player in China.
So there you go. You guys can comment below how significant you think this is. And by the way, speaking of business, everyone serves a master. That's the, Adam Smith, the invisible hand that sets markets. That's the beauty of that being a master as opposed to one person pulling the strings.
Yeah.
We serve a master. Hey, it's you. It's not giant corporate overlords. It's not the algorithm of YouTube or big tech or X or Instagram or TikTok. I'm banned from TikTok, whatever it is that day. It's you. We're not funded by a foreign caliphate. It's mugs. So please do consider, if you want this to continue, joining Rumble Premium. Mug Club is Rumble Premium. Rumble Premium is Mug Club. It's $99 annually if you want the hand-etched mug, or try it for $9 a month. You get 100% more of this show. You get everything ad-free. It's the best value there is right now. Your one-stop shop for free speech content. We get it. Tip jar fatigue. Everything's a Patreon and a GoFundMe. And I mean, how many murderers' parents' Cadillacs do you need to buy?
I know. By the way, can I just? I say that all the time. Sorry. By the way, the media should be covering this as a huge win for peace.
Of course,
it's a great step in the direction of peace. They talked about this. They gave him crap when the deal didn't get signed. Zelensky overplayed his hand at the White House. This should have been signed a while ago. And this should have been weeks into the peace process, not, okay, now we finally have a deal.
Right.
And the media has said, okay, well, there's this deal. And there's, some of these problems with it. It should be celebrated.
Yeah.
They're cheering on more death. That is insane to me.
The left has no guiding principles.
No.
It's just orange man bad.
Yes, exactly.
Orange man
Defeat
bad.
the opposition, whoever it happens to be, and Trump happens to be the person they hate the most in history of the opposition.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand this.
By the way, an argument could be made that this was really, really what Putin didn't want. And because you can see, as the mineral deal got closer to being finalized, that's where he ramped up attacks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I can prove it, but there's definitely a strong correlation there. If I happen to be Putin, I would be going, I really don't want this to happen.
You don't want that to happen. If Europe had signed this deal with them, the minerals deal, and come to some kind of a peaceful end to this, I would be applauding Europe. Finally, you stood up and did your job. Great job. I'm not going to be cheering on them. Oh, I can't believe they did it. I mean, that's just going to follow. They're just going to keep. They should just keep killing each other.
Yeah, but if Europe did it, it would have no teeth.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Russia, they just show up one day and Russia's in their mineral lot. Like, what are you doing here?
How about that?
I'm taking it now. Well, please don't.
If Kamala Harris walked out of a negotiating room with a giant long table with Putin and Zelensky and then come to a peace deal, I would have applauded that because it stops this stupid war.
Yeah. Well, she wouldn't be able to walk on her own 2 feet. She'd be carried out because she's an alcoholic lush.
Well, she got them drunk, which is hard to do for a Russian.
Probably would have worked faster, though. She probably would have got the job done faster,
Yeah.
Or don't.
Yes, exactly. Especially if she was drunk and she combined it with cocaine. Oh, you're still here? And you're still watching this on YouTube? You've probably noticed something is missing by now. I'm not here. That's because the Live Daily Show is now streaming exclusively on Rumble weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tune in there, where nothing is censored.